For Wayne and Ivanna Sally, it all began with Wayne's emergency eye surgery, but it was quickly followed by Ivanna's shocking breast cancer diagnosis at age 33. Wayne and Ivanna are here to talk about their experience and how they had to make certain changes in their life to be sure that Ivanna made it through. Their support of each other, the way that they handled this diagnosis, and the way that they want to help others is truly remarkable. When you subscribe to our show, you help us grow. Someone you know may need to hear this story, so please share with your family and friends. And consider supporting our mission. Your donation can help save the life of an uninsured woman. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. So Wayne and Ivanna, thank you so much for being with us today. This is such a treat to have you both here. And I know we're going to be talking about your breast cancer experience, but I'm kind of curious. How did you two even get together? I mean, Ukraine, the U.S., or were you here then?
So I guess I'll start. That I went to university in Ukraine. And my university had a program so the students could come to the United States every summer for work and travel program. So I would come work here during the summer, and then we had a couple of weeks before and after to travel, explore the United States. And after I graduated college, I decided to stay here from all of the places. I chose Galveston, of course. Wonderful place to be. And probably a year later, I decided to go with my friends to celebrate birthday party at the bar in Webster. So it was January 13th. We went to the Sherlock's. Unfortunately, this place is no longer there. And this wonderful guy was working there that night.
Oh, you were working there.
I was. So I did a bit of tending bar, I was going through grad school. And we still argue about which date it was, but I guess for conversation's sake, we'll settle on the 13th. But
why is that an argument?
Because
he likes to prove his point, and I know my dates right.
She's clearly right. I do recall that it was specifically a Sunday, though, because I typically do not work on Sundays, and was asked to come in to support the bar. So I went in, and somewhere about 7:30, 8 o'clock, this group comes in, and what I recognized was what happened to be the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And I remember one of my security, my door guys, comes up and he's like, "Oh, this girl that's in this group, she's gorgeous," and was happened to be talking about her friend. And I told him, "Well, clearly you're blind, bud, because that girl is beautiful." And obviously was talking about Ivanna. So throughout the night, as things progressed, she'd come up and was serving her, and I got the courage to ask her, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" Which all night I believe she was drinking just vodka and Red Bulls, and she was like, "Of course, you can buy me a drink. Well, what can I get you?" She's like, "I'll take a top shelf Grey Goose double and Red Bull." So now it went from to super premium. Mm-hmm. And somewhere between making that drink, she had called over her other friends. And so now I had 4 or 5 other girls that I had to buy drinks for. So it was a classic shell game, but that's how we first met. And then after that, was definitely was pursuing her, doing everything I can to win her affection, if you will, even learning Ukrainian.
He did.
Did he really?
Yes. So on the second date, he showed up knowing all of the alphabet, and he could pronounce my last name correctly.
And tell us that last name.
Yakubchik.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would be.
He could spell it. He could say it. Yep.
And were you impressed?
I was really impressed because nobody else from American people could ever pronounce any of the Ukrainian words correctly.
Yeah. And it just so happens that every letter in the Cyrillic alphabet was in her last name, so that's how I learned it.
That's good.
So, and then, as things, of course, progressed, I guess we can kind of speed up to one of our first dates. where she had gone out of town, and she was kind enough to come back, and she had purchased a really nice bottle of red for a dinner that I was going to host to cook for her. And at the time, I only had the red Solo cups. I didn't even have glassware. And so she comes over with this $100 plus bottle of red wine, and she notices this crock pot that I've mysteriously, got on the counter. Again, not much furniture in this apartment. And she's like, well, this is great. You're cooking jambalaya for me. Where are the bowls for the dishes? I'm sure she's, looking at the sink like, oh, no, don't worry about that. See, I cooked it at my mother's house, put it in a crock pot and transported it over. I wanted to keep it warm.
It was red flag. I was like, all right, well, whatever you want to say.
So she tries my jambalaya, and she's like, this is the best dish I've ever had. Well, that's because I'm an exceptional cook.
Yeah, then years go by, I'm asking him, where did you find this recipe to cook jambalaya in a crock pot? He's like, I just Googled the first things that popped out. That's what I used. So over the years, I tried 4 or 5 different recipes how to cook jambalaya in a crock pot, and they're just not good.
Oh.
You cannot cook jambalaya in a crock pot.
Yeah. So there was a secret ingredient or a way of cooking this?
Probably long after our first child, we went and had a date night at BJ's Brewery. And she's thumbing through the menu, and she's like, "Oh, this jambalaya looks fantastic." At this point, I'm sweating because my secret's about to be out of the bag.
Oh my gosh!
And so she orders, and it comes in, and as soon as she has that first bite, the first thing I'm asking is, "What do you think of the jambalaya? It can't be as good as mine, right?" It's good, but no, it's still not as good as yours. You see, I'm clearly the world's best chef and make the world's best jambalaya.
So he took it to go and just put it in a crock pot in his apartment.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
The lengths you went through to get her attention.
Absolutely. It must have worked because here we are today.
How long did you date?
Oh, goodness. We dated for, over a year, and she was one of the, so I'm a little bit older than Ivanna, and, I had my fair share of, just 1 or 2 girlfriends, and realized
not sure we're going to go there,
and realized that this person was for me. How special she truly was. I'd always actually personally had kind of an affinity to women from that region, Ukraine, Russian. For me personally, my observation was I always thought that they were beautiful, and it just happenstance worked out, and as they say, the rest has been magical.
He was bartending, so he was making really good cocktails, and he was making me those cocktails all the way through until we got married.
So clearly, I kept.
He
my
had
life
his own way of getting you right. yes. So you both come from a very a different kind of background, and I'm not talking about where you lived or anything like that, but you were in finance, mm-hmm. and your education was all along that line.
Yes.
And you're engineering?
Correct.
Okay. So both very logical type people or not?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
she's always right.
Oh, she's always right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you learned that early. Probably,
It took a couple years.
Yeah. So, Ivanna, you have had a breast cancer diagnosis.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It was probably longer than most people's stories. So people usually it happens later in life, so they already had a mammogram, and it happens in that year. For me, I was diagnosed this year in March, so 2024. But I remember first time I complained to my OBG doctor that I have a lump that hurts in my breast in 2018 at least. And in 2018, I was pregnant, just had a kid. She's like, well, maybe that's related to the pregnancy, nursing, other things. And then every year I would go and complain about the same thing, same site, same place. And it would be again she would ask, do you have a history of breast cancer in the family? No, I don't. And there's nothing to worry about. It's something related to breastfeeding or pregnancy or other things. And I remember even when I would go to my physician and they would be like, do you have any new complaints? I was like, besides the lump in my breast that I complained to my OBG already. And she said, it's fine. I don't have anything else to complain about. So the years went by, and this year, I had the kid in 2021 as well, so I was pregnant, breastfeeding again. They did not look at any symptoms again. And I guess in January, we were planning for another pregnancy, so I went to see my OBG again. I was like, well, I'm not pregnant. I'm not nursing for a year now, like, and that lump is still there, like, and I think it's growing. So it was the first year when she looked at that and she was like, did you lose any weight? Maybe just showing up more. I was like, no, like if anything, I gained a couple pounds. So she referred me for a mammogram. And because I have a dense breast, things like that tend to hide more what I discovered. And during the mammogram process, they looked at me and said, most likely everything fine. There was some calcifications and the lymph node, one of the lymph nodes was inflamed. So they're like, well, just to be sure, we can get the biopsy done, but most likely everything's fine. And luckily, I do have insurance, but the deductible on insurance is still high. So they're saying probably everything fine. I'm getting the estimate for my biopsy, and that probably I don't need. That's what I'm thinking, like $3,200. I was like, do I really want to pay $3,200 for them to tell me that I'm fine? But I decided to do it. I was like, if my car would need a part or something else for $3,200, I would do it without even thinking about it. So I need to think about my health same way. So I went for the biopsy, and even during that time, the physician was saying, like, I don't see anything wrong. You just have dense breast. Everything should be fine. And they told me, we're going to call you into the doctor's office when we have results. Probably it's going to be in about a week or two. Like, it might take a little bit longer for the results to arrive. And 2 days later, I'm getting a phone call, March 7th. I was in the office, and they saying, like, we have your results from the biopsy. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a little too early. I'm like, they said it's going to take about 2 weeks for the results to arrive. And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, if they're not calling me into the doctor's office, probably everything's fine. So I'm listening, not expecting the results, of course, and they're like telling me the results are positive. And like, I just cannot hear anything. I have this ringing in my ears. Like, I cannot hear the word what they're saying at that point. All I remember is that it's positive. They're saying something about level 3, so grade 3. It's not stage 3, but I'm thinking in my head it's stage 3. It's bad. I'm dying.
Oh, yeah.
So I finished the conversation, and they're like, well, write it down the phone number, so you need to call a doctor for the referral, breast surgeon. I'm writing the number down, and I'm asking, how soon do I need to call? And they tell me, the sooner the better, while you still have options.
Oh, my gosh.
And like, I just lost it.
Oh, of course. Of course. How old were you then?
33. So at that point, like, I don't know what to do. I just closed my computer. Canceled my meetings first for the rest of the day. Closed my computer and went home. Called this guy on the way. That's how we find out.
What did you think when she called you?
So,
you knew what she was doing.
We knew kind of where we were at. I think you got to step back a couple of things, at least from my perspective. I don't necessarily know if, the physician, I don't want to say the physician was ever dismissive, right? I think the physician and her doctor has, kind of delivered all of our children and has been a wonderful doctor, practitioner. I think it was just one of those things. She was younger and probably just didn't correlate the two together. But, kudos to Ivanna for fighting her body, knowing her body, and keeping pushing and pushing. One of the things that, and she's above everything that she's phenomenal at or does. She's an exceptional mother. And, we got 3 young boys, and we were actually, we had been diagnosed with a miscarriage in October. And, that was really hard because, we were very excited about bringing our 4th in. And as you were going through all that, you were trying to get some of your hormone levels back to level. And so in that process, she was going back and seeing her care physician and was bringing that up and had mentioned, hey, everything I told you previously, it's kind of, I feel like it's metastasized or gotten bigger, again, fighting for, pushing for a biopsy. And so, interestingly enough, it's funny how things mysteriously work, right? I mean, not that there's any silver lining to losing a child or, having a bad pregnancy, but, because of that, in a lot of ways, she was able to get in front of her practitioner sooner and kind of push and get diagnosed, right? This is a woman that I recall we were, a few years back, she had taken the boys to do something, and she had smashed her finger in the car door. Yeah, that hurts enough as is. But then she calls me, and she's like, hey, I'm coming home. I have my finger wrapped. I just smashed it in the car door. I'm like, well, you're pretty calm for that. And she comes home, and sure enough, it's wrapped in a bloody towel. We have to go to, an urgent care. She's, got to get sutures and all sorts of stuff. So she is a tough cookie. And when she called me, ultimately, she broke down. But at first, I mean, she was just a testament to what type of person she is, analytically processing everything. And I could see that, right? And I think that was tough because I know my wife. I know her as a mother, as a best friend, as my best friend, and for her to analytically be processing that, I also being left brain, I could kind of go through that with her, and I knew it was painful, but she was just putting on this strong front, and it was not what we anticipated to hear. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. And of course, statistically speaking, like being diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 33. Like the chances are so small.
I cannot even count the number of women who have sat in that chair and told us the same story. So it is so important that you are sharing this. Young women don't think they can get breast cancer. Their doctors don't think they can get breast cancer. I've had so many women tell me, my doctor said I was too young for a mammogram, but I wasn't too young for breast cancer.
Yeah.
So that's a very big message and one that we cannot share enough. The other common denominator is having a child. And this would not be something your doctor would be really aware of right now because it's just starting to, how things have to build and you have to have trends and and in medicine, everything is 7 to 10 years. But we are starting to see a number of breast cancers diagnosed in that first year after pregnancy. And it's becoming a real, I don't want to call it a risk factor yet, but it's a caution to all physicians that it needs to be considered whenever there's a change in the breast. And yes, there's a lot of changes when you're pregnant, but that's why your story is so important. It's being that advocate for yourself. I mean, that had to take a lot of guts to keep saying, this has changed, yeah. Your doctor ultimately listened?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But I remember, since 2018, I was 28, and our doctor was saying, maybe at the age of 30, we can schedule you for a mammogram. And then I waited 2 more years. At the age of 30, she's like, well, it starts at 40. So there is no history of breast cancer. Like in the dense breast, of course, she probably did not have a reason. But, if you listen to your body, you know that something's wrong.
Boy, that is another huge message, because you know your body. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows your body like yourself. I mean, that's just the way it is. And too often we think, well, they're the experts. So they've got to know. No, they don't. Not always. So what did you first feel when you were able to process? Where was your mind going then once you processed it?
Scared. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess at that point, I just had to listen to the doctors and tell me and do what they tell me. Because there was no other options.
No.
And at that point, when I came home, talked to my husband, the nurse navigator called us back. And at that point, I could process the information a little bit better. So she explained everything, what the biopsy came back with, that it was a ductal carcinoma in situ. It was not a stage 3, it's a grade 3. That's a different things. So I guess more information I got, the easier it was for me to process.
Right. And what was your treatment?
Well, at first, when I went to see my doctor, she recommended basically a lumpectomy on impacted side, but we had to get the MRI done first and a genetic test. Genetic test came back negative. So she said, I don't need to have double mastectomy, but if it's lumpectomy or mastectomy on my left side, we're still going to have to see on MRI. So MRI came back showing that there is cancer cells in the 70% of my breast. So lumpectomy wasn't an option. And we did go with double mastectomy, and I couldn't decide till probably a day before the surgery.
Oh. That's a tough decision.
It is.
But I mean, it's clearly, to give her recognition. I mean, it's, I consider us both practical and pragmatic people, and that's what we were looking at. We were looking at all the statistical probability on pursuing one thing as opposed to the other. And I feel that the physician support we got, all the different doctors, whether it's the oncologist, the radiation specialist, the breast tissue doctors, and even the plastic surgeons that we've dealt with were all exceptional. Yes, and they were. Did you have something? I was just going to say they were all forthcoming and transparent. We asked them, hey, what are the odds? What are the statistics? What are the facts? And I felt like every one of them were honestly transparent and said, this is what you have. These are your options. And I think that allowed us to kind of suspend all the emotion, put that to the side, and make the best statistical decision for Ivanna possible.
But still, I mean, I think, my personal opinion, that's a really tough decision to have this option or this option.
So yes, making those choices was difficult, especially at first when we walked in. So like, well, it's up to you. Like, we can do double mastectomy, single mastectomy, we can do lumpectomy. It's for you to decide. So if you do lumpectomy, or you need radiation. If you do the mastectomy, like, you don't need radiation. So I went in with a double mastectomy to reduce my chance of recurrence because of my age. And I was hoping I don't need anything else. But the margins, because it was so big, came back at 1 millimeter. And they said, like, because of the margins, like, we would recommend radiation at this point. And that's not something I was walking into. So I was like a little bit concerned. And once again, they didn't say, like, you absolutely have to have it. They said, it's up to you. If you want to have it, we can do the course of radiation for you. So at that point, I went to get a second opinion in MD Anderson. And I was hoping, I just wanted somebody to tell me, do I need it or I don't need it? I didn't want to make the decision myself. I was like, if they tell me I have to have it, I'll do it. If they tell me I don't have to have it, I don't want to have it. Like, you don't want to put anything else in your body if you don't need it, if it's not going to help you. So when we went to MD Anderson, I was thinking they're going to tell me we have seen the worst cases and, like, you good, there's nothing else you need. But they told me, like, we would recommend either radiation or re-incision to make sure we can get the better margins. So we went, like, I chose the option of the second surgery, of course, because it seems a little bit less time-consuming. It's a one-day surgery and then the recovery time. So that's what happened in end of August. And the margins came back good. There is no more cancer cells. And I was really happy for someone to tell me that I don't need radiation at that point.
Right. I think that's so reasonable. Sometimes I wonder, and I understand all the reasons. I've been doing this a long, long time. But I still think when you have someone sitting in front of you and they're saying, well, it's your option, that is tough. But you did all the right things, and you had to come to that decision. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because if I would decide not to do radiation and don't get a second opinion, if something would happen, like, years from now, I would regret it.
Oh, yes. And that, again, another big message for our listeners. Don't be afraid to go get it. Don't be afraid you're going to insult your doctor or anything like that.
You're doing it for yourself.
That's right. It's your body. Nobody else is going to stand up and say, take me when it's time. Yeah, it's your body. So how do you two talk about this now? I mean, you're just so freshly in it, out of it. Are you feeling like it's done?
Well, this guy basically told me same thing, like, it's your body, you make a decision.
Right.
So he supported me in everything what I decided, but I don't think he gave much of his feedback, what he thinks is the right thing for me to do. And it helps.
Yeah. I mean, that's always kind of been my place in this. I mean, is support, what she needs to do to make herself feel whole and healthy, right? And so if I can provide any type of guidance, support, wisdom to the best of my knowledge, then I'm there to support my wife and my best friend. But at the end of the day, your point, it's her decision, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, I think they tell you that you're never really out of it. So I can't answer and say that we feel like we're past it. But everything is moving fast. It's new. I think we're blessed to have being in the epicenter of medical care and getting the best doctors and physicians and moving quickly. I think we're comfortable with that, but to be determined.
Who do you think worried more about the other one? You worried about him just as much as you worried about yourself.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you knew that?
Oh, outside of her yelling at me in Ukrainian words every now and then, or telling me all the bad things, that I'm not doing. No, she has never given me any doubt to not believe that she's, thinking about me or concerned or worried about me. And clearly for both of us, worried about our children. We feel that, these days, children just seem to grow up so fast, right? I mean, they're just so plugged into so many different things. And, not to sound biased or boastful, having, 3 little boys that, are wonderful, but, we have some really smart cookies, as my wife would say. And sometimes we just want them to not be immersed in everything, to not be knowledgeable of everything, and kind of sheltering, protecting them. I think it was
But
tough.
they know.
I think our oldest knows.
We did not sit down to talk to them about cancer and all of this. We just told them that they're going to have a surgery and I'll be fine, better, but they're going to have to help me. Like, I cannot carry them anymore and other things like that. So even now they're still asking, are you better?
And that's okay. That's okay. At some point when they realize, they'll look back and think, oh, yeah, that's what Mom was going through.
Absolutely. You got the little ones wanting Mommy to pick them up.
Oh, yeah.
She's fortunately not able to.
So, Wayne.
Yes, ma'am.
You couldn't fix this. Did you ever feel frustrated because you couldn't fix it?
All the time. Because, that's what I do, in my industry, right? I'm providing solutions to problems. Maybe not as much these days in the sense of kind of more of a managerial leadership, but I'm fixing different problems,
right?
Right. So there's an inadequacy, if you will, of wanting to just, for lack of a better term, visually scoop your wife in your arms and tell her it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this tomorrow. It's going to be resolved. But you
did tell her that.
I did tell her.
Yeah, of course.
I did tell her that.
You have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is what I hear from spouses so often. I couldn't fix it, and I was frustrated. And
sure.
Yeah.
Well, and then she physically had to do the same for me.
Oh, yes. That was a funny story. So my surgery was on April 22nd. And I was thinking, like, as soon as I can, like, we want to go on vacation. So as soon as the school was over, even like 2 days before, like, I remember May 25th, the Friday, we were supposed to pack our stuff and go on a road trip to Zion, Yellowstone, and Colorado. Everybody was so excited about it. And this guy, May 21st, going for eye checkup because he had some floaters and things like that. So he's calling me from the doctor's office that he has to have emergency surgery on his eye. He had detached retina.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. So my surgery was April 22nd, and his was May 22nd, so exactly a month later. So May 21st, we're sitting in the doctor's office and they're explaining how the surgery will go. That he's going to have this bubble of gas in his eye and he needs to lay down face down, cannot fly, cannot go to the high elevation, no mountains for us. And he needs to basically be laying down face down like this 20 hours a day. Like he can just get up and go use a restroom like for like 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And then he cannot fly or do anything like that for until August. So the summer plans are canceled. And I'm sitting there like a month after the surgery, and my doctor tells me that I need to sleep on a bed elevated, like with my upper back up, and he needs to sleep face down. Like he cannot pick it up anything heavy. I cannot pick it up anything heavy. I was like, we are a wonderful couple.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I had gone into the weekend and lost and recognized that 5% of my field of vision, I'd started developing a blind spot. And between Friday and Monday, I'd gone from 5% to 70% of my field of vision was lost.
Oh, how scary.
And so anyway, I went in, saw a retinal specialist, and within, a minute less, they're like, yeah, your retina's detaching. You have to go get emergency surgery. And I said, well, time out. I'm here for steroid drops and eye drops. That's all I'm here for. I'm not here for surgery. So it was quick and fast. But she was definitely in my corner, basically a month after her stuff.
But how do you stay on your face 20 hours a day? I mean, how did you do that?
There's these pillows on Amazon, like kind of like with the hole, or basically if you imagine the massage table, that's only one way, like you can comfortably do it. Even like sitting at the table, like he would put this pillow down on the table and just lay down like this.
Burned through a lot of audiobooks, I'll tell you that much.
Bet you did.
So I got a lot of jokes, how are the optics of things? Do you see yourself getting better? Got a lot of those. Yeah.
Aww.
So we are a perfect couple in that regard.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you both had quite a journey. Sure. And I know that you are on your way back to full mending, full recovery. Of course, you're going to stay vigilant. Absolutely. So what would you tell a young woman who finds something in her breast?
Well, definitely advocate for your health. Get a mammogram. If your doctor doesn't refer you to get a mammogram, get a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And one of the things that I learned through this process, I did not realize that I was never tested for the vitamin D. And vitamin D levels are so important. And it was low for me, I assume, my whole life because that's how I was feeling. And by taking supplements and doing the right things, like just take care of your body.
Good
all
advice.
Of the tests, stay active, eat healthy, and we went through all of this stuff, reading about breast cancer because it wasn't hormonal for me; it was environmental. About the cookware, the plasticware, and all of those things that's better not to use it in your everyday life. Deodorants, and you can go on and on and on. Just make the healthy choices in your life.
Right. And what do you have for a husband who's having to walk through this with their wife?
Listen, I second what she's saying. I mean, we've completely changed our lifestyle. We've, no paraben deodorants, and I mean, we're not using any nonstick cookware. Everything's stainless. So, for any dad chefs out there, you're going to have to learn to recook on stainless steel cookware because that's different.
Maybe burned a stove or two already.
I bet he has. Yes.
Oh, yes. So, but yeah, I think you adjust, you adapt. And I think the biggest thing, of course, is being supportive of your wife, your children, if you have any, the family in general, because it's, it is something you're going through together as a team. Mm-hmm. But you always got to be that foundation, that bedrock. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And support from the family and friends and people around you, it's amazing. And not only for me, like for the significant other, like for my husband, the support he needs just as much.
Oh, such good advice. Yes, we forget, no matter how strong and stoic they can be.
Absolutely.
They get scared too.
We've realized through all this that mental and emotional health is just as important as physical health.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you have given our listeners so many good tips, and thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open. It's not easy. Not easy to talk about some of these things.
I feel like it's getting easier with the time.
Good.
I'm still new to this, and I was thinking like I'm gonna go to the breast cancer survivor group. We're gonna talk about it, and then I realized I'm not ready for this yet. Like at work, we had a work event, and there was so many people with the cancer, and like everybody's emotions just impact you as well. And I was like, one-on-one, it was very helpful to talk with the people, like about their stuff, what they went through, my stuff, what I went through. But in a bigger groups, it's I'm still getting very emotional.
Right, and that's okay. See, you are really in tune with yourself and your body, and know when that boundary needs to be put up, and that's a lesson all of us could learn. Because you can get toxic people, or you can get that time when you just feel like it's too much.
And I would like to say on behalf of my wife and I, thank you for having us as guests and allowing us to both share our story. I would say one of the biggest motivators for all this was, to your point, is people want to hear different experiences. And I've just been so fascinated by how embracive the community, friends, have been through all this. Someone either is directly influenced, indirectly influenced, or just empathetically want to help. And that's what we want to do. We want to give back and help.
Oh, that's so special and so important, and such a big part of living these days.
Yes.
We need each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And I'm sure we're going to have you back, because I know you're going to learn more in these next few months and have more to share. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish. It's essential.